He didn't shout, didn't flinch, just looked at me like he was studying something he'd already solved. And then, congrats. It hit me harder than if he'd flipped the table. I could hear the clock ticking behind him, the dog's claws scratching once across the floor. Normal things, all wrong now. I blinked, my mouth halfway open. The milk in my cereal started to curdle, or maybe it was just the sour wave rising in my throat. Then he added it. So calm, so quiet, like he was checking off a list. You do remember he had a vasectomy 8 years ago, right? I didn't move. Couldn't. I hadn't even looked him in the eye yet. But I heard his chair slide back, the gentle clink of his plate on the counter, the faucet running. He rinsed, wiped his hands dry, and left the room without another word. Before we go on, if you've been caught in this story, even for a second, hit that like button and subscribe. It means more than you think, and it keeps these stories alive. Back in the kitchen, I stared at the spoon in my hand, still hovering over the bowl, like if I just finished the bite, things would go back to before, but they wouldn't. I heard the front door open and close, the sound of his keys settling in the tray. No slam, no storm, just that unbearable silence. My hands started shaking. I pulled out my phone, tapped my brother-in-law's contact, hit call, straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. A third time. Same. I stood, heart pounding now, and paced into the hallway. The walls felt tighter, too close. I opened the hall closet, grabbed the vacuum just for something to do, then slammed it shut and leaned against the door like it might collapse behind me. He knew, not just about the lie, but that it was a lie I hadn't even fully questioned yet. I called my sister. She didn't answer. Texted, "Can we talk?" A minute later, she replied, one word, "No." I dropped the phone on the couch and walked to the window. Outside, the street was quiet. Our neighbor across the way was watering his lawn. A delivery van eased to a stop 2 houses down. The world didn't know anything had broken, but it had. He wasn't supposed to be calm. He was supposed to yell, demand, beg for a reason, but he didn't, which meant something else was coming, something I hadn't prepared for, and it was already too late. I texted him again that night. Just one line. "Please don't ignore me." No response. The read receipt stayed gray. I tried calling from a different number, blocked or maybe just declined. I couldn't tell anymore. The phone buzzed twice, then went dark. My sister had always been the chatty one. Group texts, midweek check-ins, photos of her kids' messy art projects. But since I'd told my husband the baby was his brother's, she hadn't said a word. 2 days later, we had brunch, something she'd insisted on weeks ago. I wore neutral makeup, pulled my hair back like it would make me look more put together, as if control on the outside might make things stop unraveling underneath. She was already seated when I arrived, coffee half gone, napkin untouched. She didn't hug me, didn't even rise. "Thanks for coming," she said, but her voice felt rehearsed. I sat, tried small talk. She didn't bite, just sipped her coffee, eyes scanning the room like she was waiting for someone else. Then she said it, low, clipped. "I told Carter we're staying at my in-laws this Thanksgiving." No explanation, no apology, just a rerouting of decades of tradition. My fork hovered over my plate. "Oh, I didn't know." She didn't look up. "I figured you would have heard by now." I almost asked what she meant, but I didn't, because I knew. Deep down, I knew she wasn't just talking about the holiday. Back home, the house was too clean, too organized. I caught myself wiping an already spotless counter just to keep moving. I asked my husband if we were still hosting. He glanced up from his laptop. Of course. No warmth, no anger, just like he was reading the weather. I asked if we should change anything, the menu, the setup. He didn't even look at me this time. No need. But I noticed it that night. A folder slid into his bag. Plain, slim, the kind you carry when something needs to be said without speaking. The next morning, I checked the guest list we'd printed weeks ago. Some names were missing. Quiet deletions. No new names, no obvious gaps, just subtle absences. My cousin from Baltimore, Carter's parents, a few others who'd always made it a point to come, year after year. I didn't ask. Didn't need to. Doors shut faster when I walked past. I caught the tail ends of whispers. Not loud enough to decipher, but sharp enough to sting. Something had shifted. He wasn't just angry, he was preparing. And the lie I'd told, the one I thought I'd confessed, was no longer the one being hunted. Something deeper was being uncovered now. something I didn't even see coming. The scent of roasted turkey clung to the walls, candles flickered along the mantel, and someone had put on soft jazz, the kind that fades into background chatter. It looked like Thanksgiving. It smelled like it. But under the surface, something sour was pushing up like rot beneath polished wood. I wore the sweater he used to compliment, set the table with the napkin rings his mother gifted us. I laughed when I was supposed to, passed wine, complimented the stuffing. When the moment came, I stood too quickly, clinked my glass twice. "We're expecting," I said, with a small, practiced smile. A few murmurs, a half gasp. His aunt put her hand to her mouth. His mother's eyes watered. That Catholic kind of joy, where pregnancy still meant sanctity. I nodded like I believed it too. But Carter, my sister's husband, shifted in his seat like the cushion had burned him. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at his wife. He just stared ahead, breathing a little too deeply for someone supposedly thrilled. And then my brother stood, slow, intentional, like his joints had to think it through. He didn't raise his voice, didn't make a scene, just said, "Not mine." A fork clattered to a plate. My cousin coughed. The jazz kept playing, stupid and oblivious. Silence hit like a backdraft. I turned toward him, but not all the way. I couldn't meet his eyes. My legs started trembling, but my smile was still frozen on my face like bad porcelain. Then he reached down into the side of the couch, lifted the folder I'd seen in his bag days ago, and laid it flat on the coffee table. Gently, almost respectfully, like it wasn't a weapon. But it was. My sister's hand shot toward Carter's wrist, gripped it hard. He pulled back. "Don't," he whispered. Too late. The air in the room changed. People were looking, but not moving, like a stage play no one remembered auditioning for. He didn't open the folder. Just left it there, like he knew none of them would resist. And they didn't. His father reached forward, slipped out the first page, eyes scanned, blinked, handed it to my mother-in-law, who adjusted her glasses and turned gray around the lips. Someone in the back whispered, "What is this?" Carter stood. My sister's chair scraped back as she lunged up after him, but my husband, no, my ex, he lifted his hand calmly and said, "Sit, you owe my brother an apology, and your wife." Carter stopped mid-step. No one breathed. I couldn't hear the jazz anymore, only the hum of something coming undone. The pages made a soft crinkle as my mother-in-law handed them off. Page after page, slow motion disaster in black ink. Names, dates, markers, results. I watched their faces change with each line. Quiet gasps, shifting postures. The room had turned courtroom, and he didn't need a judge. The papers were enough. No yelling, no raised voice. Just proof. Brutal and clean. My aunt covered her mouth. My uncle's jaw actually dropped. His hand went to his chest like he needed to steady something. Across the room, my cousin muttered a curse and backed toward the door, like guilt might spread just from standing too close. Then came the last page, the one with Carter's full name typed across the top. Comparison. Carter V. Below it, in stark clinical certainty, paternal match, 100%. No misreads, no ambiguity. Science didn't care about family secrets. Carter didn't say a word, just took one slow step back, another. His hand fumbled behind him, searching for the armrest. My sister hadn't moved. She looked like someone had poured ice water through her veins. My stomach twisted. Everything I'd tried to bury, all the rationalizations, the quiet lies I told myself, the panicked prayers that somehow this would disappear, they cracked open in front of everyone I'd ever shared a holiday with. And still, I stayed silent. 'Cause what was left to say? He stood. Carter, the man who'd whispered that it was just once, that it didn't mean anything, that no one would ever know, started to move toward the hallway, toward escape, but my husband didn't let him go. "Sit," he said without raising his voice. Just a single word, sharpened by restraint. Carter froze. Then he said it, not to Carter, not to me, but out loud, to the room that had stopped breathing. "You owe my brother an apology, and your wife." Even the jazz had stopped. I realized someone had turned it off. My sister blinked once, like she was waking up from anesthesia. She looked at me, and I couldn't hold the stare. Her face, betrayal, rage, humiliation, all fighting for the same space. Carter sat back down. He didn't deny it. No one did. And in that silence, something shifted, not just the air, the whole gravity of the room. My husband, the man I'd lied to, hurt, humiliated, still hadn't raised his voice. But the entire room deferred to him now, not out of fear, but because when someone holds the truth in their hands and doesn't flinch, everyone else has to. And I had nothing left to hold on to. The plates were full, but the room was hollow. The turkey had been carved, stuffing spooned, cranberry sauce glistened in a crystal dish, but no one reached for anything. Forks sat idle beside trembling hands. Her father cleared his throat once, then again. Finally, he bowed his head, forcing his voice through a tight jaw. Let's give thanks. No one followed. He stumbled through a prayer anyway, his words barely audible over the silence. Lord, we thank you for family. He trailed off, didn't finish. Her mother hadn't lifted her eyes from her plate. Not once. She sat perfectly still, fingers curled around a napkin she never used. Across the table, Carter stood, quietly. No chair scrape, no excuse, just the sudden knowledge that he wasn't welcome in this room anymore. He moved like he knew his presence left a mark, and he didn't want to make it worse. My sister didn't speak, didn't even look at me, just stood and followed him out, grabbing her purse but not her coat. The door clicked shut behind them like a final period on a sentence no one wanted to hear again. And then there were 10 people staring at untouched food, steam still rising, the illusion of warmth undone by the cold sitting in the center of the table. I picked up my glass, sipped the wine. It tasted metallic, or maybe that was just the blood in my mouth from clenching my jaw too long. She stood and began to gather plates. No words, just quiet movements. Like if she worked fast enough, maybe she could clean the shame off the dishes before it soaked in. I didn't stop her, didn't lift a finger to help. She reached for the serving tray, and I turned to her, my voice low but clear enough for every single person still seated to hear. So, I said, folding my napkin, what else are we eating that doesn't belong on this table? Her hand froze midair. Her aunt dropped her fork with a clatter. Someone let out a breath, too sharply, like they'd been holding it since the folder hit the table. She didn't answer, just stared at me, mouth parted, waiting for words that wouldn't come. And I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. Just done. The kind of done that makes you wonder how you ever thought this table was whole to begin with. No one resumed eating. No one filled the silence. And she, my wife, the woman who once decorated this dining room with scented pine cones and Pinterest recipes, just kept clearing plates like a stranger who'd wandered in and didn't know where she was. The difference now? Everyone saw it. And no one offered her a seat. I didn't say a word when we got home. Just took off my shoes, hung my jacket, walked past her standing in the hallway, pretending to text someone. Her phone screen was black. Upstairs, I plugged in my charger, opened the folder one last time, flattened the corner someone had bent during the handoff. The result stared back at me, clinical and detached, no emotion in it. Just numbers, markers, and that one unmistakable match. I opened the group chat, the same one where her mom sent sunrise Bible quotes and her cousin posted baby bump selfies, where her sister once shared our engagement photo and everyone reacted with hearts, where birthdays, graduations, prayer requests, and pie recipes all collided into one long tangled thread. I attached the photo, no caption, no explanation, just the image. The blue circle spun for a moment, then I set the phone down and left it face up on the dresser. Downstairs, I heard a drawer open. Close. She didn't say anything. Maybe she knew. Maybe she didn't want to ask. The first reply came 5 minutes later. Her cousin Dylan. Jesus. Then another. Is this real? Then, oh my God. Carter? No freaking way. The chat exploded. A dozen replies stacked within seconds. One from her aunt. A voice message too shaky to listen to. The phone buzzed, like a trapped animal trying to get out. She came into the room, slowly, no makeup now, no earrings, nothing holding her together but her arms crossed tight across her chest. What did you do? She asked. I didn't answer, just looked down at the phone where her sister's youngest had posted a single sad face emoji, then deleted it. A moment later, her profile photo vanished, then her name. She had exited the chat, left her own family behind, like she'd left the truth, incomplete, half-formed, too ashamed to face the consequences. Her voice cracked. You didn't have to humiliate me? I looked up. Finally. No, I said, you already did that. I just made sure no one missed it. She sat down on the edge of the bed, like her knees gave out, and the chat kept pinging. Names popping up, some defending, some attacking, all of it out in the open now. There was no patching this, no apologizing it away. It was done. And the part she hadn't realized yet, once the truth breaks loose, it doesn't come back quietly. The first text came the next morning when the chat had finally gone quiet. Can we talk? Calmly. I let it sit. The second came hours later. Please, just us. No drama. I just want to explain. I stared at the screen until it dimmed, then typed my reply. Already did, that was it. For the next few days, nothing. Then her number lit up again. New approach. Polite. Measured. There's more you don't know. I wasn't in my right mind. We were fighting. You were distant. I made a mistake. A mistake. Singular. As if betrayal came in one flavor, as if it hadn't detonated under a table full of family who now wouldn't look her in the eye. I didn't reply. She tried again. You didn't even ask what I wanted, or why. As if any answer she gave could rewrite DNA. By Friday, I'd stopped checking my phone. She didn't know about the new apartment yet. My lease had flipped over the first of the month. A smaller place, quiet building, different part of town, no shared memories baked into the walls. A week passed. I came home late. Work, gym, whatever kept me moving, and the doorman flagged me down. She came by earlier, left this for you. He handed me a white envelope. Her handwriting, slanted, deliberate. My name, first and last, no hearts, no smiley face. She wasn't performing anymore. I didn't open it, just nodded, thanked him, and rode the elevator up. At my desk, I slid it into a larger manila envelope. No rush, no anger, just the steady rhythm of a decision already made. I wrote one line on a yellow sticky note, pressed it to the front. You gave your story, I gave mine. That weekend, I dropped it off with the doorman and gave him her name. Hand this to her if she returns. Nothing more. He glanced down, nodded. Understood. No fireworks. No dramatic doorstep scene, just silence, the kind that's louder than shouting, sharper than any argument she might have rehearsed. She had poured gasoline, lit the match, called it a mistake. But I didn't owe her a rescue. I owed myself the exit. And I'd already taken it. The first thing I did was remove her name from the joint account. No confrontation, no warning, just a quiet morning meeting at the bank where the manager shook my hand and slid over a freshly printed signature form. She wasn't there to contest it. She couldn't. The moment her name hit the group chat like shrapnel, she'd forfeited the right to share anything tied to mine. My lawyer already had the file open when I arrived. He didn't ask questions, just pointed to the updated will and said, whenever you're ready. I signed. Initialed. Dated. The house was easy. She never bothered to check that the deed had remained solely in my name after refinancing last year, something about trust, or maybe just laziness. Either way, the title update took 10 minutes. The vacation home in Sedona, her favorite place to stage Instagram perfect weekends, was trickier. That one was held in a family trust, but I'd been preparing for this quietly. I'd already petitioned the trustee. On paper, it now belonged to someone else, someone who'd never answer her calls. I saw the baby registry late one night, still live on some polished pastel-colored website. It had her name on it, my last name, crib, onesies, diaper fund. I clicked report, marked it as fraudulent, then watched it disappear. She texted me an hour later, where is the registry? I didn't answer. Carter's divorce papers hit the county records within the week. My sister didn't wait long. The moment she saw her husband's name at the top of that DNA report, she moved like a woman with no more tolerance for lies. The fallout wasn't loud, just steady. She lost her support system. One cousin blocked her. Another posted a vague quote about snakes and grass. Group chats split, friends picked sides, but the legal system didn't need to pick a side. It just needed signatures. Mine was already filed. I didn't even tell her. The lawyer handled the delivery. She would have opened it expecting a plea, maybe a paragraph of bitter words, something she could cry over, twist into a redemption arc. But there was nothing but the case number, filing date, finalization estimate. It was over before she realized the start line had passed. The weight of everything she thought she owned, the accounts, the home, the name, the future, slipped out from under her like a rug pulled fast. And still, I said nothing, because dignity doesn't require noise. It just requires clarity. The tree still stood in the corner, same as every year, same ornaments, same lights. I strung them myself this time, quietly, late one night with a glass of whiskey and a playlist that didn't ask questions. No matching pajamas, no Instagram countdowns, just light and glass and a man finishing what he started. I set the table for 6, not 7, not anymore. The spot where she used to sit stayed empty, chair pulled out just slightly, like the absence might breathe easier that way. My mother brought her famous ham, humming the same carols she always had. My father helped slice it, steady hands, still precise after all these years. My brother arrived late, but not apologetic. We hugged longer than usual. No one asked where she was. Her sister didn't come, didn't call. I heard from an uncle that she moved into a friend's guest house. I imagined the conversation she wasn't having. The silence between her and Carter, stretched too thin to ever snap back. I'd expected it to feel heavier, hosting alone, but it didn't. It felt clean, still. Like walking into a room after the static has cleared. We poured wine, shared stories, even laughed. It wasn't forced. Her name didn't come up, not once, but her absence was everywhere. In the cranberry sauce she used to oversalt, in the broken cookie tin lid that always stuck, she used to smack it on the edge of the counter, in the faint mark where her stocking hook used to hang. I didn't touch that hook, just left it there. Midway through dessert, pecan pie, half-melted vanilla bean ice cream, my brother lifted his glass. To silence, he said. Not loud, not performative, just honest. We all looked at him. He nodded once. It tells the truth better than noise ever could. My father tapped his glass against his. My mother whispered, Amen. I didn't raise my glass right away, just looked across the table at the seat she once filled and let the quiet settle. And, for the first time in months, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel betrayed. Just relieved. Not because she was gone, but because I finally was. It arrived in early March, tucked between a bank statement and a charity flyer, as if it hadn't been crafted to undo me. A postcard, blank on the front save for a watercolor of a coastal town I didn't recognize. On the back, her handwriting. Neat, careful, too careful. I'm sorry. I never meant for it to get so far. No address, no return name, just the echo of something broken trying to shape itself into closure. I stood by the kitchen sink, holding it between two fingers like it might stain. I didn't reread it, didn't frame it, file it, save it for the therapist I never called. I struck a match, watched the edges curl black, and let it fall into the sink. The ash stuck to the porcelain for a moment, then slid down with the stream of water, out of sight. Some things don't deserve space. I opened my calendar. There was a spring week circled in pencil, originally meant for our anniversary trip. It had been left blank since. I filled it in. New coast, new view, a place with cliffs and waves that didn't care who I used to be. I booked one ticket, one seat, packed light, just essentials. No photos, no keepsakes, no reminders of promises that rotted beneath polite smiles. At the airport, no one asked who I was meeting. No one looked for a second passenger. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the need to explain myself. The plane rose through low clouds, cutting upward into clean sky. I didn't look back, didn't text anyone, didn't leave a note, because when something ends this quietly, with no ceremony, no slammed doors, just a line on a card and a silence that wraps around your name, you don't need goodbyes, just distance, and the strength to leave nothing behind worth chasing.